Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into the Odd Thoughts podcast. My name is Gunther, and I'm your host, and welcome to episode 15. At the Odd Thoughts podcast, we like to think about and talk about the everyday odd thoughts, as well as discuss some mental health topics and just have the general relatable conversation. So, if that's your type of content, then I appreciate you tuning in. In today's episode, I was hoping to talk a little bit about a few different topics. I wanted to talk a little bit about some dream childhood like acting roles, some dream roles in movies or TV shows or whatever it is, as well as talk a little bit about staying home alone. Not just as a kid, which kind of gave me the idea from the first topic, but also as an adult and kind of the perks that come with that, and more so maybe sometimes the fears that I have of that, and then leading into and ending with a little bit of some of the other weird fears that I have in my life, the kind of irrational fears, I guess you could say, just more so just things that I think I'll just spook myself out a little bit with. So if you want to listen to any of that, then stay tuned in. But before we get into any of that, I just wanted to ask how everybody was doing. I hope y'all are doing okay. I know I'm doing all right. Over the last couple days, have kind of my voice has been kind of gone, and my throat's kind of hurt. I wouldn't say that I've been sick or anything like that. My body's felt pretty good, and I haven't felt like a temperature, and I've been fine. Like I literally feel fine. It's just my throat, and it's just kind of my voice is obviously a little shot. So if you hear me cutting out a little bit and it sounds a little scraggly, I do apologize. But I needed to do a podcast. I kind of was missing out on doing an episode, so I kind of figured that with my voice being out a little bit and my throat being hurt a little bit, I kind of thought it was a good idea to maybe try to slow down and do a little bit less talking, but mean just as much with my podcast. That's kind of something that I've noticed is that I kind of get into this trend of talking too fast and rambling too much, and I know that that's kind of part of podcasting and kind of part of what I want the podcast to be is kind of a free flow thing, but I also know that I get a little in my head with the rambling and I speak a little too fast, and I don't think I really iterate too many topics as thoroughly as I should. So I'm going to use episode 15 as kind of a way to slow things down and hopefully do it a little easier and just slow down. But besides that, I'm glad that y'all are here. I'm glad to see everybody with me today listening to this episode, and I'm happy to see that you woke up this morning. It's a win to open your eyes, and honestly a very much a blessing to get to wake up every day. I think there's definitely an uncertainty to know, like, you don't really know how long you're going to be around, in this life. And I know that I wonder a lot of times. So when I get a chance to reach a new day, reach the next day, I feel very blessed and I feel very grateful for that. But I just try to do my best with every day. I don't try to expect a lot. I just understand that there is something for me in each and every day. There's a reason that I woke up. I'm wanted by people. I have a purpose. So the fact that I got to wake up another day and the fact that I'm still around somehow, for me at least, assures that I have a purpose in life and that I'm worth it, that I have a worth. And life is so complex, and it's an unbelievably great thing to have such a complex thing to exist in this world. So when you hopefully get to wake up and live another day, that's an unbelievable feeling. At least for me, it feels very unbelievable. So I'm happy to see you here, and I'm happy to be here with you. You know, just a little something to think about. Just remember that I love you guys, and you are loved, and I know that you guys have a lot of love in your heart. So just be good to yourselves and be excellent to others. Yeah, so, but today, episode 15, like I said, I'm going to try to do my best to talk a little slower, do a little less talking, kind of. I don't want to leave out anything like any of the topics and I don't want to like short myself, but I do want to like keep it easy. So making sure that I kind of have some pauses as well without it being too awkward. And also, it's like there's kind of something with the pauses, especially, whenever I listen to podcasts. I often I think I listen to podcasts with like multiple people, so there's a general pause in conversation and a general back and forth. So it gives, I think, like the audience or like the listener a chance to catch up a little bit. But yeah, so the number one thing I wanted to get into, not necessarily the number one as in the most important, but I wanted to talk about some dream childhood acting roles. I don't know really. I guess what kind of got me thinking about it was I was reminded of the show Codename Kid Next Door. If you Kids Next Door, I didn't mean to say store. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound like that. Yeah, Codename Kid Next Door. But I remember watching that show so vividly, kind of in like late elementary school or whatever. And I always thought how cool it would be. I guess I kind of fantasized it more so in like a real life scenario. Like I kind of wish that I was a secret agent kid or whatever, and I wished I had like a cool treehouse base. But I also think it was always kind of part of like the imagination of children. I think that's kind of what made it cool too. But it was like a dream to think about even voicing a character. Like one of my favorite characters, obviously number one, was like the coolest dude. He was the bald kid with the glasses and stuff like that, the British dude. And then number five was the black girl, and I thought they were the coolest characters. And I just wanted to hang. I think it was more so, I guess, just fantasizing about like hanging out in the show. But even as a kid, I think I remember thinking like, what if this was live action? As often, nowadays, I think we see live action cartoons more than we used to. So it was kind of cool to think like, what if they ever made one? And hopefully I'm not too old and I don't age out of that role. Because in the show, if you get too old and you're not a kid anymore, then you got to leave the agency, and that was like devastating. But the show didn't last long enough for me to feel like I even aged out of anything. So, but I always had that dream of like wanting to be in that show. And then it kind of got me thinking, like I thought about that, and then I just started not necessarily thinking just about movies from my childhood, but thinking about those as well, but more so about just general movies that I thought were cool growing up. I wasn't really a super censored kid, so I got to see kind of a decent range of things and nothing too crazy, but I always got like it just was cool to fantasize, and I always had a good imagination as a kid. I think that's one thing that I feel very grateful for still till this day is that I have a bit of an imagination. I try to. I don't want to get rid of it. I like fantasizing about myself in movies to a certain degree. Like I don't want to get lost in a world or whatever that means, you know? But I do like kind of enveloping myself in stories. Another movie that I used to think about because when I was growing up, especially around like when I was like 10, 11, and 12, and maybe 9 years old, I was really into baseball. I played baseball all the time and I was always on a team. I played a couple times a year and I enjoyed baseball a lot. I think I had like kind of a dream at one time as a kid also that I wanted to be a professional baseball player for sure. And it didn't seem real unrealistic necessarily, but I remember when the movie Bad News Bears came out, and I just remember how it felt super realistic in the way of like how kids are on baseball teams, in like opposing teams as well. There's always going to inevitably be the one outcast team, and there's going to be other, kind of decent teams, and then you're going to have the really good team, which I've been on all the teams, you know what I'm saying? I've varied through the different levels. So I just thought it was so funny though, this cast of kids on the Bad News Bears. I wanted to for sure be one of the kids on the on the Bears team. I wanted to be on that team. I just thought it was so funny and just like Burt Reynolds or not Burt Reynolds, sorry. Excuse me. Golly. Billy Bob Thornton. Sorry. But I just thought he was so funny in that role. And I think we could all relate to the coaches that you see through the movie. And like I said, the characters were relatable. And I was a little, I wasn't a shit kid. Sorry for my language. I wasn't a terrible kid. So it would have been funny to see what character I would have been probably like I had a kind of a potty mouth and but I was just like a kid that just loved being. I just like playing baseball. Just kind of had like I felt like most of my younger childhood was just me with like a just a dumb smile on my face, kind of, just like just going along with things. It's just so I always had even when that movie came out as a kid, I just thought like how awesome that would have been to be in that movie. And still tell us, I mean, hopefully maybe one day in the future they remake it, maybe long enough to where I could be one of the coaches. I could be what is the coach's name? Mr. Mr. Nuttermaker? Something like that? Mr. Nutterbaker? Sorry, I'm so confused. Anyways, it doesn't change the fact that I don't love that movie. And when I got a little older, I got a chance to watch the original one with Walter Matthau and Jackie Earl Haley. I don't know why Tatum O'Neal I think as well is in that movie, but I just think of Jackie Earl Haley and Walter Matthau. But it just I think more so I wanted to try to think about I tried to be realistic what I fantasized about. I think that was the easiest ones about, to try to like picture myself in that role or whatever. It wasn't never like, oh, I think I could do better than this kid or this kid sucked in this role. I think I could do way better than that. I think I just wanted to kind of hang out and just kind of experience whatever was happening in the movie. Cause even like deeper than that, like I remember watching like the first time I watched Dawn of the Dead, the remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old or so. It was probably around that time. It was this whole uproar of zombie culture. Not only were like eventually games like Left 4 Dead coming out and Dead Island and stuff like that. What's Dead Rising or what am I thinking of? Not Dead Rising. What am I thinking of? Anyways, there was just a whole spark in zombie culture. And so when I watched that movie, I was like, dang, I was like, can you imagine being stuck in a mall? And I think I kind of glorified more so the idea of just getting to run around a mall and just like do random stuff and try on random clothes or just like break things and just do random things. But then the idea of killing, just mowing down zombies, the idealistic situation would be if I just never got bit and, I could just like mow down as many zombies as possible and I could just like hop mall to mall or whatever, just place to place. Because even at the end of that movie, they get on the boat and they go to the island and they get invaded on the island or whatever. There's zombies waiting on the island for them. But so living in a zombie world would be chaos. It'd be terrible. But in Dawn of the Dead, I'd have been in that movie. I was a little young, but like I said, I just wanted to hang out. Maybe they needed a kid character. I could have been that kid character. What the heck? But like I said, I think it was always more so I glorified some of it. I just wanted to hang out. I just kind of wanted to like be in the movie and hang out. Because sometimes it got a little like more like I think about 'cause, like I said, it was always about glorification. It got a little more serious. Even when I watched like Home Alone, growing up watching Home Alone, I always thought like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to be in that movie. But like I said, it was always more so like, what if it was just real life? What if you were left behind in real life? For the first couple days, it'd be kind of just like Kevin McAllister in that movie, right? It'd literally be just you eating whatever you wanted, doing whatever you wanted, literally just having the most fun, doing the most random things, tearing apart the house. As a kid, I don't think I was really rambunctious or like destructive like that, but I would have just been like, I don't think I would ever noticed. At times, I think I was kind of a clueless kid, a clueless kid. So I think I just kind of would have just like my parents would have been gone, and then I'd have just been like, oh, they're gone. Oh well, I guess I'm hungry. But Kevin McAllister was an exceptionally smart kid. Obviously, he was a fictional character made to be not your average kid because he has all these siblings and he's got to fend for himself and fend for himself. I just had my little sister and my older sister, so I didn't really have to do too much. But I thought about like what the scenario of me staying home and what if intruders came in, you know what I'm saying? And could I configure booby traps? I don't think I'm as creative with the booby traps. I think I would just like act like I could try to grab a knife and just run at a grown man if I was a little kid, you know what I'm saying? Act like that would ever work. That's how I thought, I think, sometimes like, as a kid, though. I think I kind of like thought like that. But yeah, as a kid, I always, I had, I had maybe a little bit of a dream to act a little bit. But I never had like it wasn't really ever the roles that I wanted as a kid. It was all the movies I was watching was older roles, and I kind of was hoping that one day that maybe when I get older and if I do act and stuff like that, that maybe those types of roles are for me in these movies. I think that was always kind of what it is. Like I said, there were movies as a kid that I did watch in shows that I watched that I wanted to be in, and I thought as a kid that would have been cool to been in, but most of it was like thinking I just wanted to. It was more for. It was just glorifying the world that was in the movie, the things that were happening in the movie. But yeah, I don't think I could have handled being home alone for multiple days. Truly, the first time I think I stayed home alone, I think I was probably like 9. I always say I was pretty young. My little sister was younger than me, 2 years or 2 years younger than me, so she was 7. And so we were pretty young, but when I first started staying home, I very much so remember it not being very long. I think it was always for like maybe like an hour or maybe 2 hours. It was always usually like when my parents wanted to run like an errand, whether I was at my dad's house or my mom's house. But then eventually, like that's kind of the test, right? I think that's the test for parents, especially me and my sister had each other, so it was kind of easy to like rely on each other and I think they put a lot of trust in us as kids, and we weren't those types of kids that were gonna, if you turn your back, we were gonna destroy something type thing. We weren't those types of kids. So, you could leave us home for an hour. I was pretty much clueless, I think. Me and Katie were both that's my little sister's name, is Katie. Shout out Katie. But most of the time we were just kind of doing our own thing. Most of the time, it was literally just I was playing video games and she was just doing whatever. Or at times, she would be like maybe at a friend's house eventually when we got a little older. So I would just be like chilling. I'd just be chilling by myself. And I just don't think I'd ever notice. But like, it was fun. Something when it was long periods at times, that was cool. When I knew that my parents were gonna my dad or my mom or my sister weren't gonna be around, that then I could just like hang out. I didn't want to do anything weird. It was just it was just being like loud and stupid things like that, and I could just freely play like a video game I want or watch whatever movie I want without my little sister hopping in, which I didn't mind. Like she always wanted to watch the same things I wanted to watch, and wanted to include herself in the video games that I played. So it never felt like I was ever struggling to like have to do that kind of stuff. But that peace, especially like nowadays, like when you get your own place or if you live by yourself or even if you live with other people and you get as an adult, like you get that moment of peace by yourself, that for at least for a couple hours, it's still a good feeling. You kind of just it's sometimes you don't even notice. I still to this day I don't think I really ever notice when people aren't around. I just kind of do my thing. I try not to let that affect me too much. But I there with a little bit of the comfort I feel sometimes, but I still feel a little uncomfortable. I can't help but to, like I said, I freak myself out a little bit sometimes. I can't help but to think stupid things sometimes. So as a kid, I remember kind of thinking like, well, I don't think I could handle like an intruder coming in, or I don't think I would know what to do in a fire. I know to escape, but I don't know how to put it out. So those were kind of maybe like, or like the idea that my parents would never come back. That was kind of scary. Just disappear. After there's a movie I remember watching as a kid where like they wished for the parents to disappear, and I thought like that would be too scary. And so I think some of those fears have kind of shifted to being older a little bit. If an intruder breaks in, then I guess I'm gonna have to handle it. But I don't want that. I get nervous just thinking about someone coming and ringing the doorbell, coming and walking in front of the house. I just want that like peace of mind. I just want that like silence when I'm home alone. You know what I'm saying? I don't want anything happening. So when that outer break of peace, it's hectic. A fire, obviously, as a kid, I wouldn't have known what to do, but as an adult, I'd be way, way fine with that. Don't know how I'd cause a fire, but if it was to happen, I would be all right. And I guess I'm not worried about my. I mean, I'd hope my parents don't disappear on me, but like it'd be kind of scary to think about just like walking out one day, like you just maybe had a couple days where you just weren't feeling good and you just were kind of inside all day and trying to recover from whatever, and you walk outside and there's nothing. Everybody's cars are like it's just like War of the Worlds or whatever, where everybody's been zapped out of their cars or something like that, and you just happen to be the one survivor. But it's not like I don't have fun, still. I try not to freak myself out with that stuff. I try to really appreciate the staying home alone. Especially like I said, it was cooler when you're a kid because it kind of felt like there was a sort of a responsibility, sort of independence or whatever you want to say. I thought it was cool. I felt like a protector of the house, you know what I'm saying? I felt like I was my dignity, or not my dignity, but my duty to do the best I can to protect our stronghold, to protect my little sister, to make sure everything stays safe. And maybe at times I would kind of get a little. I just was like, if it got too long, maybe then I really started to realize my parents were gone. Then I started maybe was like a little bit freaking out a little bit, but I was pretty, like I said, usually was pretty distracted and wouldn't really notice. And I was never left home alone like for long periods of times until I was like a teenager. Because teenage years, it's like you can kind of like eat it for yourself and fend for yourself in that way. You can kind of do that kind of stuff, especially like when you turn like 17, 16, 17, 18, you're fine eventually. And obviously as an adult, like that's what I have to do is take care of myself. So if I'm home alone or not, it's always going to be the same. But I mean, sometimes it's a little lonely. I do. It makes me feel peaceful knowing there's people around, and when I hear noises and when I hear people talking and I hear activity in my house, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel alive. Makes me feel like I exist in the world. But so that makes me feel just as peaceful. It's not like I'm trying to avoid people all the time. But I can't help but have those little weird irrational fears. Those little just random things to spook myself out. Just at night, just thinking about maybe someone being outside my window and oh, they want to break in, but there's people there, so they're not going to do it. I get so weird with that stuff. And then that's a lot of the fears that I have. There's probably some if I took a list, which I won't do today, but if I took a list and I thought about like my major fears, I probably could think of a few different things, a few different things that scare me. But the ones that really get to me are the ones that are like the little irrational ones. The little spookums, the little freak yourself out kind of things. I do it way too often. I can't help it. I don't know. I don't know why. I sit here. I know that things aren't happening, and I feel like I'm always kind of some new ones develop, and I kind of get rid of the old ones, like other ones and stuff like that. But it's just some random ones. So I kind of was thinking like I started thinking about some other weird fears that I have, and things maybe that I've kind of crossed over into my life or through my life more so. And I could probably list off 100 of them. Just any little thing. These don't control my life. I really I swear they don't control my life. I swear I'm not that scared. But it's more so just trying to point out a little bit of the laughability of some of it. Like um what is it? Oh, yeah, I have before I eat something. Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I have it written down, so I was trying to like read where it was written. But I'm very big on when I'm eating, I have like a texture thing. I'm also someone that like I get thrown off on eating things if I reheat something and it's got a little coldness in the middle of it and that throws me off. So I'm a little bit of a sensitive eater when it comes to that stuff. But why why not calm myself before I eat, right? Why not just think about how much I'm going to enjoy the food? No, no, no. I have to think of I always inevitably, well, not always, and I truly don't always, because some things I can kind of accept what's in it, and especially like most things I know what's in it, especially if I cook it. But some things I can't help but to think like the possibility of there being anything in it, just anything that's gonna throw me off. Something, if I'm eating something that's soft, you know what I'm saying, and then randomly there's a piece of hard something, or I'm eating something that's kind of hard, and then I bite into something and there's some softness. It's it literally throws me off, and I can't help but to think it sometimes. Or like thinking about something crawling out of like a sand. Ugh, freak myself out with that stuff, and I can't help it. And nothing ever happens. Maybe I've had a couple unpleasurable things when it comes to eating. Obviously, the very classic. Sometimes I get a little, a hard noodle in my macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. But most of the time, it's not as big as I sometimes think. So, yeah, why not just try to calm myself before I eat? It would be too easy, I suppose. So that's one little thing. Like I said, it doesn't really. I only it's not all the time, but sometimes, and especially when it comes to things that I'm already a little skeptic of, and maybe feel a little guilty of eating, it kind of pops up in my head. Um, uh, in my family, especially on my mom's side of the family, I'm very much so known as someone that don't go inside in lakes. My mom's side of the family has a cabin off of a lake, and my whole childhood I grew up like going to the lake. And as a young kid, I was fine with going in the lake, and I enjoyed going tubing, and I still till this day don't mind going out on the boat. Like that's totally fine. But I don't go in the lake. And I know I'm a little chicken for it. I do get it. I do understand it. I'm not necessarily a big time aquatic person. I don't like swimming that much. I'm not really that a big fan of that. But I still go on the boat, like I said. But it's as a kid, I remember it kind of came from. I remember I started becoming a little scared of the lake because of the idea of what was underneath the water. It's not very clear in a lot of lakes. A lot of lakes are very murky, and there's, it's I creep like I said, I creep myself out with this stuff more so. So as I've always thought about, not the fish that are there. I know I can take on most fish, but the bigger fish, up and at my feet as a kid, that scared the hell out of me. But as I've gotten older, I've generally gotten over that fear. It's not super scary to think about necessarily getting in the water. I still have the fear of thinking about what's at the bottom of the water, though. And a little, not it's like some of it's so super irrational, but I think about this in all lakes. Every time I pass by a lake, I just think about like the number of dead bodies. I know it's a little morbid to think about, but just thinking about like dead body floating to the surface while I'm in the lake just scares me. And it's not the number one reason I don't go in the lake, 100% not. But it's definitely a silly, irrational thing that there is no reason for me to think that way. There is literally zero reason for me to think that way. But I can't help it. And I know that the lake, well, I don't know. I don't know. Because I was talking about it this summer with my father. I was talking a little bit about that idea. And the lakes up north are more so they're natural made lakes. So a lot of them are old. A lot of them have been around for a long time, as opposed to maybe down south more where there's like man-made lakes. So the lake that I grew up off of, I think, is a natural lake. I'm pretty sure, and it could be people for years been stuck down there. From just going missing at a nighttime swim, or nighttime fishing, or being dumped there. I don't know. Maybe maybe the mafia reaches out to the woods of northern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin and stuff like that. You don't know, but that it's just silly to think that. And like I said, I don't mind going on the boat, but it's can't help but to think that there's stuff lying underneath the water in lakes. Sorry if you can hear my tummy grumbling. I'm getting a little hungry. And one more thing. I'll talk about one more weird thing, which this one has carried over from childhood. It doesn't really scare me as much anymore, but every time when I wake up in the middle of the night, especially it's more so when I wake up in the middle of the night, which happens more like as I've gotten older. I have a hard time sleeping for long periods of time. But every time I wake up and it's still dark outside, and obviously my room's like hella dark, I can't have any light going on. So I always think about that there's someone in the corner of my room. Even when I'm not facing like my full room, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about the possibility. I give myself a little goosebumps like right off the bat, and then inevitably I think about just like hopping out of bed and taking them on and I'm gonna beat this ghost up or whatever. Feel sorry for the person in the corner of my room. Sometimes I sleep naked. So that's on you. That's you see what you want to see. But there's never anybody in the corner of my room. Never. And but why do I it's cuz I creep it's always these like constant creeping things. Even when I go out in like my garage at my house, the top of like the ceiling's kind of missing so you can kind of see up into like our attic area. And I just think about someone just staring at me. I always just maybe it's just the idea that there's something in the corner just always looking back at me, especially when I got my back turned. Just always something right there. That and there's no reason to think that. It's never happened. There's never been someone in my room. Not yet, at least. But I'm inevitably gonna think about it. And it don't help when I sit on like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and I watch like creepy videos and scary paranormal videos or whatever. There's a lot of like creators and people I follow that like make that kind of content. So I can't help it. I used to do it when I was younger too, but I felt like I could sleep like a baby. Felt like I could listen to like scary stories and then just like pass out and be fine. I'm sleeping my 8 hours and I'm fine. Nowadays, I get I don't know why. I spook myself a little bit with that stuff. I'm a little fragile now. But yeah, just a little bit of just a few weird fears, a few irrational fears, I guess you can say. I guess it's okay to call them irrational. I can't help it. I can't help it to be. It's like that's kind of like a lot of things though. I just can't help but to think about these little weird things about it and freak myself out. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about that, I guess. Um, I appreciate everybody for listening to the episode. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of my dream childhood roles in movies. Staying home as a kid and staying home as an adult and talk about some of my weird fears, Be a little bit vulnerable. So I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you for listening. This episode's going to be up on Spotify podcast as well as YouTube, for your enjoyment. And I make sure to try to post on both every single time and just trying to build traction on both. Um, I'm also up on different social medias. I'm up on Facebook. I go underneath Gunther Getlicker. Both those G's are uppercase. I also have an Instagram. I go by Gunther underscore Getlicker. Both those G's are lowercase. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I go by at OneMikeGG. And you can follow me on any of those just to stay tuned in and stay tuned in for some future content. But I appreciate everybody for listening. And just remember, everybody, to show up for yourself every single day. I love y'all and be excellent to each other.